I'm Peggy Martin, and Bud is my business partner there. And we own Cedar Creek Gardens, which is south of 1880 town off of I-90, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. We have a Millette address, a Belvedere phone number, and Millette is actually White River, but we have a Midland city, which is Hawken County. And so, yeah, sometimes it's a challenge. Only until 2 years ago did Google even finally find us. You couldn't Google our address. You would actually end up halfway to Pier. So we got into chickens kind of in a little bit different way. Bud his mom had chickens. She raised eggs and sold eggs for years and years. And Bud always had chickens up at the house. But when we got the high tunnels, we got voles. And they were invaders. I mean, they thought we were running the Hilton buffet. I mean, it was like, they had pathways and paved highways, and, they'd take our root vegetables and pull them down, and they had caches built into the soil. I mean, it's the craziest thing you ever saw. So I was Googling, and I said, well, technically they say that chickens will eradicate the voles and the mice. And so we went, and one of the colonies was giving away free chickens. I didn't know that a lot of colony chickens are caged birds. And again, I was raised with Cadillacs and motorcycles. I was not a farm girl. So anyway, Bud said, do whatever you want. I know you've been Googling again, which just means work for me. So I was like, okay, well, we're going to get some chickens. We got these free chickens. Well, these weren't free-range chickens. They were used to being in a cage, so they walked up to the side of the greenhouse and stood there. And they didn't even know they could move, let alone what a mouse was. And Bud's mother comes in, and Grandma goes, oh, my. And so I'm like, okay, well, we maybe better get some different chickens. So we got a few more chickens, and is how we got into the chickens. And now we have 800 free-range chickens. Yeah. And so our girls are pretty spoiled, I will say that. Let's run through some pairs. I got to get where I can see this. So one of the things that I always tell people is when you're going to start raising chickens, decide why you're going to raise chickens. I mean, obviously we had a problem that we needed to solve, and it wasn't really that we were going to get into egg production. That was just going to be a bonus. And then, you always butcher your chickens. That's just the way you get chickens, you butcher them. And he made me butcher 4th of July, I think it was. And I'm like, say what? I didn't sign up for butchering chickens. I've killed many pheasant and grouse, whatnot. But anyway, I was like, no, we're going to rethink this. So there's chickens for egg production. There's chickens for egg and meat. And then, of course, there's chickens just for meat. So you have to ask yourself, why or what breed is going to be best? And I'm going to get into some chicken math here in a little bit, and that'll become a lot clearer as to why you want to choose what breed. All right, so these are primarily egg layers. Okay, so an egg layer, again, a lot of people run these leghorns. They are not very cold hardy. They are, and if you're in town, that would not be a breed that you want because they are very noisy, especially the roosters. They're the ones that are going to wake the neighbors at 4 a.m. in the summer when the sun comes up. Then you have the Ostrops, the Americanas, the Polish. We have some of them Polish. We only have the roosters just because they're too cute, I mean, they're the little fluff on their head. And again, it wasn't something we bought. It was the neighbors were moving, and they said, would you come get these chickens because we don't want them anymore. And so that's how we got the Polish ones. And then the sex links. But again, you can kind of see that most of these are a larger breed. The Polish, again, I would not ever recommend that one for an egg layer because they're not consistent. And then you also have to take the look at the color. We don't run those Americanas because not everybody is used to a green egg. So if you're, our primary markets are wholesale, and so they're not used to the green. They're used to the dark brown or the white. So keep that in mind as you're choosing your different breeds. Then this, and you can take a screenshot of that. That will take you to that site, or there's the big long address. And this is a document that is a wealth of information. It has all the breeds on it, you know, kind of some traits of each one, and then it'll tell you, you know, if they're good egg layers or not. And so I threw that in there for you. And there's multiple, you know, charts out there, but this one was from an educational site, so it was pretty inclusive of everything. Now, these are meat and egg, and you'll see the Rhode Island Reds, the Wyandottes, and the Orpingtons. And when we got into it, Bud, weren't you primarily running those Wyandottes and
Wyandottes and Plymouth Rock?
Plymouth Rock and the Wyandottes. But take a look at this, and you'll see that that PY is per year. So a Rhode Island is going to get you about 300 eggs per year. The Wyandottes are going to get you about 200 eggs per year, and Orpington, again, 250. But take a look at what they weigh, 6.5 to 8 pounds, and these are all pretty much brown eggs. Now, again, remember those different pounds, because that's going to make a lot of difference when we get to our chicken math. All of these are great breeds. You know, we've ran at different times. When we first started out, we had all of them. And now what we do is we run specifically highline, brown, and white. And these are our chickens. And Bud thinks it's funny. You see how so he takes the side-by-side and he starts to pull up there, and then he'll back up. And those chickens are like women at Black Friday. They're just like, whoof, here comes the food. So then he'll back up and they just come running at him. And so, but these are some of our chickens. Again, why do we run white and brown? Well, you can't, again, this is my opinion. We don't like to sell just a carton of white eggs because it's a marketing mentality. Those came from the store. We can't sell all brown, again, because it's a marketing mentality. Well, aren't eggs white? You know, we're people that don't know where their food come from. So we mix white and brown to kind of even out the market mentality. And we've noticed actually that's the best. They sell the best because it's not like, oh, they're all white eggs. They couldn't have farm raised them because farm egg raised are brown, and vice versa. So these highliners, they are prolific egg layers, but I'm telling you, they are not a meat bird. When I told you we had to butcher them, I'm like, they were no bigger than a pheasant. I mean, a Cornish hen, I think, is fatter than them, you know, not really, but I was like, why are we butchering? And of course, then when we butchered them, you know, I ended up having to can them. Now, our girls just die of old age. When they're dead, when they go to chicken heaven, it's their time to go, and we don't take care of them before then. So this particular brand averages 315 eggs a year, but you can see that they only weigh about 4.5 pounds. Our birds only eat a quarter of a pound a day, a quarter of a pound a day. Now again, ours are free range, and you're probably wondering, well, what's the difference between free range, cage free, and all of the other terms that they like to throw in there? A cage free doesn't mean that they get to go outside necessarily. A cage free means that they are not in a cage, but they have free access to the building that they are in. Okay, so that doesn't mean they get to go outside and play. A free range means that they get to go outside and play and do, or go outside to eat, forage, whatever they want to do. Ours, chickens, we open the door in the morning, and then they go out, they will come back, and they will lay their eggs mostly in the nest. We don't have to go Easter egg hunting. And then at night, we leave the light on, just like Motel 6. Isn't it Motel 6? Yeah. We leave the light on, and they come back in, and then we shut the door because we don't want predators to get into our coop. We do have a very large run. So if we have a garden tour, we do not let our chickens out of that run because we had past instances where people brought dogs, and our chickens aren't afraid of dogs because we have a dog, and so they don't know to be afraid. And that person's dog jumped out, and it was a hunting dog, and he just had a heyday. 26, I think he got before we got him shut down. He killed 26 of them. So we have the run in case we have a tour. Or what's another example? Sometimes if we clean, and we clean the coop, we have to put them in that run so that they can go back in, and it's just easier to contain them and work them. If we, what's another reason we have the run? Oh, well, during the avian flu, that was a thing that we were real, that's a real huge concern, the avian flu. We would let them out in the run last year, but we didn't let them out near the dam, so per se, because the geese were coming, and the things that could carry that. So they got to go out in the run, but not clear down by the pond where they normally can go. So, okay. All right, now we're going to do egg math, and this is where it's going to come into play. I told you about the pounds, how much they weigh. I told you about the egg, how many eggs they lay. So a dual-purpose bird weighs between 6.5 and 8 pounds. Our birds weigh between around 4.5. So you have a 6-pound hen, it's roughly going to eat 3 pounds of feed per week. Then I went and we have a local feed store, so I asked them what pellets cost, like per bag, or like Tractor Supply if you went and bought that. And the average cost was 41 cents per pound. So it's 41 cents per pound times 3 pounds, so it's $1.23 to feed per week, or it's about $64 per year to feed one chicken, all right? So now, most of those, those dual purpose, those Rhodes, those Wyandottes, they're going to lay on average about 225 eggs per year. So if you take that $64 and divide that by the 225, you're at 28 cents an egg, or it basically costs you $3.36 per dozen eggs. Now, again, this is oversimplified. That's not taking into account any bedding, any oyster. Yeah, any what? Yeah, no electricity, no oyster shells, any extra nutrients that you might give them. That's just strictly if you were giving them a pellet. And we don't do the pellets. We do a special blend. And the reason that we try to avoid the pellets is because we sell primarily to organic stores, and we don't know what's in those pellets, and they probably contain some corn. We avoid corn and we avoid soy. And again, that's just our choice, because of the organic stores that we sell to. So remember that $3.36. The ones that we run, these Highliners, and so then it equals out to be $18.75, or about 19 dozen a year that you would get from one chicken. All right, ours eat about 1.75 pounds of feed a week, so you do the math, and you're going to get down to a $37 per year that you have into feed, and the average is 315 eggs, so your cost per dozen comes out to $1.44. So you've gone from $3.36 to $1.44 just because we don't run the dual purpose birds. We're strictly in it for the egg projection. Does anybody have dual purpose birds? You run the dual purpose. So do you butcher them at the end, or they die of old age? Butcher them? And do you butcher them at a certain age?
Well, the ones that we did last, they just go up to a year. I think we kill them every year.
Okay.
But I have both. I have dual purpose for us to eat, and then I mostly just sell eggs too.
On the eggs. And so you don't butcher your egg layers, you butcher the dual purpose. Okay. Okay, so do you guys butcher any of them, or?
The raccoons butchered them.
There you go. know. God bless those raccoons. Yeah, we were standing there one day and a coyote ran through the yard. I mean, broad daylight, just shoom, and Bud's like, get a gun, and I'm like, too late. There went the chicken, there went the coyote. Yeah. Okay, so
Which are the roosters, and then I've been selling my old
selling the old hens. You know what? We used to do that. We used to put them on Craigslist, and of course that was before Facebook Marketplace, and we would put them on I think $5 and say we have live hens $5, and that's when we ran the dual purpose birds, and we literally had people come. This one lady was crazy. She had a car, and she put them in her car. No crates, no nothing. They were in the back seat of her car, and I was just like, oh. But and we had names, and they would come back every year and then buy those birds. But then when we went to these Highlanders where there's no carcass, they're just pretty much bone with a little bit of meat, and I felt bad about because again, people don't know. They're thinking like me, and I didn't know much about chickens until we got into them. They were thinking the big dual purpose, and there'd be a drumstick, and you might, you got a tidbit on our drumsticks. Okay, so we got 336 to 144. So, and we get about 26 dozen per year per bird. So the difference in your profit is, and we're going to say that at $4. So you've got the difference there is the 64 cents that you would make between the what it cost you and what you're selling. 336 minus or $4 minus $3.36 is 64 cents. So you'd make $12.16. Then on ours, the ones that we do, you would make $6.56. Okay, so then the difference is $54.40 per chicken. All right. If you're running 50 chickens, it's $2,720, and if you're running 400, it's $21,000 difference. We run 800. So there's a lot of difference, and that's why we don't run the dual purpose. So again, you have to think about, if you're just at home, like at home flock, you want to put some meat on the table, but yet, sell some eggs to pay for the whatever. And we also, we don't do the whole chick thing. I shouldn't say that. This is the first year, just because chicks are hard to get, that we've hatched chicks, and we had an incubator. But typically, we have arranged with one of the colonies, and they raise our birds, because a chicken doesn't start laying until it's 18 weeks old. So you've already invested, 18 weeks worth of feed into it before it ever starts to lay. That's a long time to have little baby chicks under a heat lamp, and especially at 400. So we've made an arrangement with one of the colonies, and there's 2 or 3 colonies in South Dakota, and there's also Amos. He's out of North Dakota that they bring in, but primarily it's these Highlanders, and almost all the colonies that I know of run these Highlanders. Okay, any questions to this point?
Okay, this might be a silly question. They will lay, this Highline breed will lay both brown and white?
Yep, so we get there's Highline white and Highline brown. So we get the red chickens, the Highline red, they call them a brown chicken, but they're really red colored. And they lay the brown eggs, and then the white ones lay the white eggs. No, I probably didn't mention it, but yeah, and the thing is that the Highline browns are more docile, and they're not as flighty, and they will get out and scavenge a lot better than the white birds do. The white birds are a little smaller in frame size than the red ones, so they actually eat less than the brown ones. And how much is it? I don't know. Do you? I don't think we've ever measured.
Don't know what difference it makes.
Yeah, but my favorite are the brown ones, and they're very, they're just very docile. I mean, the grandkids pick them up, and yeah.
Do they have a big comb, or do they not have a comb?
They do have a comb, but it's not. Some chickens have real tall ones. Yeah, these don't. They don't. I had a gentleman ask me if we had roosters. I said, yes, and this was a city gentleman. And I said, yes, we have roosters. And he said, oh. I said, but you know it doesn't take a rooster for a chicken to lay an egg, right? And just the way he looked at me, I knew that he didn't know that. And so he said, so I had to have a talk with him, an educational talk. And so I'll go into that because there was alcohol involved in that talk, and so I was a little blunt to him. But anyway, after that, I was like, he said, so why do you have roosters? Well, I can tell you that the chickens without the roosters, because when we first went to this brand, we didn't have roosters. They were always under our feet, always. And they would just sit there, you know, and how they hover. And it took us a while to realize they thought we were roosters, you know, and they were actually looking, you know, natural breeding cycle, and it was ingrained in them that they you know, were looking for their mate, their male, and so we got the roosters, and now they're not always. I mean, you literally can walk. 400 is a lot to walk through. Try walking through 800 chickens that are all sitting there going, you know, and so it was just, yeah. So, and also, the roosters will take X amount of hens, and it's not, you know, I mean, one rooster might have what's a group of hens called? A flock, a little flock. Okay. So, see, I'm a city girl. So they have a flock, and so, you know, one rooster might have 30 and one might have 50 or whatever. But also those roosters, they tell the hens where the food source is. So like if they come across a bug, they'll make this funky sound, and then the hens will go over there. And also the roosters are always on guard. When a you know, a hawk or something comes over, they make this crazy sound, and the chickens will go running back for the coop, or they'll run under. We have a great big weeping willow. They'll run under that. But the roosters are always on guard for the hens, and the hens are just a lot more relaxed with the roosters around, and they're not under our feet, and we can walk. All right. Okay, so we're gonna get into egg weights. And before I start this portion, yes, you do have to have a license in South Dakota to sell eggs. I don't care if you're selling a dozen or you're selling 100 dozen. You have to have a license. It's a very simple open book test. The Department of Ag will send you the book. It's an open book. You take the test. The gentleman comes down and he watches how you candle the egg. He asks you how you're washing the egg. And then he'll watch you carton up the egg. So it's very simple, but yes, you do need. And it's $10 a year. I think it's $10 a year. If you're just raising your own, but it's $100 a year if you buy eggs and sell eggs. That's considered a commercial license. So yes, you do need one. So when you get the egg, we actually had one of the organic stores ask us if we wouldn't wash the eggs, because you know when you wash the egg, it washes the bloom off, and we turned them down because. Well, chicken's poop gets on the egg, and I didn't want to take the liability that I sold that egg and there might be something on it. So what we do is, and again, this was told to us by our inspector, is we have an ice cream bucket. And so we wash the egg, and then we put the egg into the ice cream bucket, and the ice cream bucket is full of water, and then it has a cap full off of the top of the Clorox into the water, and that's how and then we dip them in there, and then we put them over on a towel, and then they dry. There's other different things you could use, but he said Clorox is cheap, and it'll kill the salmonella on it and anything that might be on it. So again, that's what we do. I know that, you know, a lot of people just put them on the counter, and you're okay to put them on the counter and not put them in the refrigerator if you don't wash them. Once you wash them, though, don't leave them on the counter, okay? All right, so these are the egg weights. So when we have the carton, we put the carton on the scale, we tear it out, and then a medium has to weigh 1.32 pounds, and so on and so forth. These highliners that we run, typically most of ours are going to be, start out with the mediums, and then they get larger and larger as the eggs, and most of them are laying jumbo by the time that, they go to chicken heaven. Bud's going to tell you a little bit about how we control the egg size, but again, this next thing that you see here. So Debbie was one of our work campers, and she actually lives there now year round, and she didn't realize that a chicken doesn't start laying jumbo eggs, and so she posted this. This was probably 2 years ago or so, but she posted this, and you can see that says, "I think we can all agree some hens just try harder than others," but she didn't realize that was a pullet egg versus an old hen egg, so she just thought some were overachievers, which I thought was cute. Egg size is affected by feed, water, temperature. And again, because we avoid the corn and the soy, and also some people just magically think that you go buy layer pellets and that chicken is going to stay on layer pellets its whole life. That's not the way it works. If you're in it for the egg production, because the amount of crude protein you can see that a pullet needs, that's just an egg layer, is 20 to 22%. But if they're a dual bird, they don't need as much protein. And then you can see that the calcium and the phosphorus need to be adjusted. So by the time that one is 22 weeks, when you're gradually decreasing the protein, but you're increasing the calcium, because the calcium is what's going to help them lay a hard an egg that has a harder shell. Do you all give yours oyster shells on top of? Yeah, so do we. I know one gal that she takes any egg that she uses and she dries those eggs, and then she runs them through a food processor and feeds them back to them. That's too much work for me. I just go get the calcium out of the bag. Yeah. So and you would think that corn. Everybody says, "Oh, just get some corn and throw it out there for your chickens." Actually, corn, the crude protein is only 9%. Most of what corn provides is starches, which is energy. So if you're somebody that can give corn and it's real cold in the wintertime, giving them a little bit of corn gives them an energy burst and then helps them get through a cold spell. But soybean, the only way that you can get organic soybean isn't through a mechanical process. It's an extraction process. So if you need to be organic, stay away from the soybeans because of the way that they get the protein out of it. We use primarily oats, wheat, peas, and millet. This is your portion. No, so I don't.
Well, I'm gonna say, a lot of people think you're gonna grind your feed or crack it for your chickens. You really don't have to. It's like corn or your peas, either one. That's why chickens got gizzards, they got rocks. As long as you got a scratch on that, you get all your nutrients out of your whatever you're feeding them chickens. Not only, I did a lot of studies on corn, even with cattle. As long as it's got a scratch in it, they get all the nutrients out of that corn. So they really don't have to grind it or crack it.
And we can get peas locally. We know how they're grown, so that's what we'll use for our protein source. Let's see, there was here it is. Most commercial feed uses solvent extracted soybean, but only mechanically extracted soybean can be used in the organic side. And then about 2 weeks before the bird begins to lay is when you want to start changing their diet. So again, most of them lay between 18 and 20 weeks. If you change it much before that, it's kind of like you're ripping the foundation out from under them. If you don't get them adequate nutrients when they're baby chicks, they're not going to be a very productive hen for you. Oops, get my clicker. Yeah, been there, bad hair day. So what happens is that, you know, everybody says, oh, my chickens just don't lay in the winter. My chickens just don't lay in the winter. I never get no eggs in the winter. Well, there's a lot of what's happening is, so we get ours in April, our hens in about April, and again, they're about that 18-week period, and then they lay all through the summer. Well, by the time they get to October, they're going to go through a molt, because what happens is the length of day, the lack of daylight is what actually, and then the temperature change puts them into the molt. And so molting can last anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. Again, some breeds, they call them slow molters. They won't lose all of their feathers at once, and they actually lose them in an order. If you look at the hen's wings, you know, they have the flight wings. They'll start to lose the ones closest to their body, and then they just keep losing and losing, and you know, till they've lost their wings. These are hard molters, and no, that's not one of our chickens. That was something that I found on the internet, but we've had some chickens that look like that. They just, you know, lose all of their feathers. Again, the lack of light, the cold temps, but there are some things that you can do. So if you go out on YouTube and you look up black soldier fly larvae, you can take it's a do-it-yourself, and you take a tote and you put in there some cardboard, and then you put in there food, scraps of whatever, and the soldier fly, again, they'll come in there and they will lay, basically it's the maggots, okay? So they lay the maggots and the mealworms, whatever you want to call them, and they lay them, and then as the mealworms run through their life cycle, they have to get into the dirt. So they will crawl up out of that cardboard and that rotting food, and then you have a can on the end of it, and they just crawl into the can. They're actually wanting to go crawl and find the dirt, but we just psych them out and we put them in the can, and then we can feed the mealworms to our things. But there's some great YouTube videos, and they're not hard to make. You know, you put them out in the summertime, then you can have them. I would, again, if that's something, if you don't need one more thing to do, just order some dried ones off of Amazon. Brewer's yeast. How many say anybody use brewer's yeast? Yeah. So I asked Grandma the other day, I said, Grandma, did you ever use brewer's yeast? For what? I think she thought I was going to ask her if to make some more dandelion wine or something, but I don't know. I said, for the chickens. No, she said. I said, well, have you ever heard of that? And she said, yeah. She said she actually had. So you can put about a half teaspoon per cup, and I did the math for you. It's about 1 cup per 5 gallons. This is the one that we use, oats. I don't know how much. We just increased their oats. Bud tells Debbie, okay, you know, it's getting colder out, you need to adjust the millet, or you need to adjust the oats, or I don't do that part, so.
Oats helps them with their molt, losing their feathers in their molt. More oats will. Then we found out, you know, by the time in the stores, they start ordering more large eggs and extra large. So if you increase the millet, you get more larger eggs. If you're extra large, you increase the wheat.
Yeah, and so it's just a concoction, but it's never, what we're feeding them is never the same in the spring as what we're feeding them in the winter time. Because again, they need, you know, it's colder. Our coop is not insulated, but we let the manure build up in there so that it produces heat for them. Adequate ventilation is really important. We had to add an extra fan because we increased the number of chickens, and it was just too damp and wet in there. And so one of the things that they were kind of getting, and they're just like snotty-nosed little children, you know, but I mean, they were just kind of, they weren't really sick, but you could tell they were kind of feeling off. So one thing that we did 2 years ago was we started introducing oregano. Oregano is a natural antibiotic, even for us humans. And so we tried the oregano oil, and just like you would buy from, you know, what's the company? What's a essential oil company? What? Young Living, yeah. It's just like essential oil. And so it was about 4 drops per water, and the water is 3 gallons? 5 gallons? 3 gallon waters. So we would just put a few drops in there. And then the problem was it didn't mix real well. So some chickens got it, some didn't. So now we have a dried oregano, and we just buy it in bulk, and we'll just, you know, as we're making our feed in the buckets, we'll put a little bit of millet, we'll put a bit of little whatever, oats, and then we sprinkle a little bit of oregano, and so then it goes right into their feed. And we don't do that in the summertime because they're out and about and they're gathering greens, but in the wintertime we'll do that and add it for them. Yeah, we had a lady say, she's from one of the organic stores, and we get calls. I you know, not real often, maybe 1 or 2 a month. They'll say, "What do you feed your chickens?" And Bud will say, "Well, we feed him this and this," and she said they're 100% organics, and he said, "Well, I don't have them on a leash, so I guess if they eat a bug, you know, is that bug organic? I don't know. You know, you make the decision." And because there was one, she said, "Well, I'm not a true vegan, but, you know, I try to be." I'm thinking, first of all, if you're vegan, why are you eating an egg? You know, but she said, "I tried to be," and I was like, okay, well, our chickens eat bugs, so I don't know what to tell you. I just don't know what to tell you. Yeah, there's a lot of different questions that we get. Okay. Can you believe this? These people, nothing against them, but I don't think they get the concept of a chicken coop. I'm not gonna dust my house, let alone come out here and dust that chicken coop with a chair and a geranium on it and some curtains, for crying out loud. But I will say that a quality coop is really important. One of the reasons that people's egg production goes down is because their coops aren't warm enough in the wintertime. That and the lack of light. We don't shut the lights off. You know, we have lights on timers, and so they go off. But a chicken really needs about 15 hours of daylight. So we leave the light on, and even in the wintertime, you know, the lights are on in the coop, and then they'll go off because they do need a little bit of time at night, you know, to sleep. And the other thing, you can call us crazy or not, but we took all of our roosts out. We don't have roosts in our coop because, number one, they get on the roost, and I swear it's just like, oh, go to the roost and go to the bathroom. So the place that, you know, was the wettest and all the time was underneath the roost, you know where they want to lay the egg if they don't want to lay in the nest? Under the roost. And so one of the best things I can tell you is go on Amazon and get a golf ball retriever. And it's on a telescopic pole, and it's got rake fingers in it, and you can just take that golf ball retriever and get them eggs out from underneath the roost, and them eggs fit right in them fingers of that golf ball retriever perfectly, and then you don't have to call underneath the roost to get the eggs out. And so adequate ventilation, putting some lights on the timer, but again, ours isn't insulated. We do have a concrete floor, and we used to, when we first started out, we just had a shed. It was just a, you know, normal garden shed that you would buy, and then we had low tunnels that were about that tall, and we would let them go in the wintertime. We'd let them go out the side of the coop and into our high tunnels because it's nice and warm in there. Well, with the new Food Safety Management Act, you cannot let your chickens run in your garden if you're going to sell produce, because you can't have raw manure within 180 days of when you harvest the vegetable. So, and if you sell over $25,000 a year, I believe there's a cutoff, then you fall under the Food Safety Management Act. So we couldn't let our chickens run in our high tunnels anymore. Because, matter of fact, the Food Safety Management Act says that if you see any animal poo, like a deer walk through your garden and poo, you have to not harvest within a 5-foot radius of that deer poo or raccoon or whatever. So yeah. So if you're thinking that you're wanting to let your chickens, I heard in one of the Amanda said they say, oh, and chickens are great to eat the grasshoppers. Yes, but you need to, take some. I've seen them take chicken wire and just make chicken runs, but do it on the perimeter. Don't have them running up the rows. If it's your own garden and you're not selling produce, you'll be fine. But just be cautious that if you are selling, that you don't let the animals run. Okay, these are just things. Roll-away nest boxes, greatest things in sliced bread. The bed in the nest is slanted, so the eggs roll to the front, and then that's covered. And so then if you have, a challenge of egg breakers, and by the way, if you have chickens that do a lot of egg breaking, if you take and you poke a hole in one, take the egg out and fill it full of mustard, the egg, and then put it back in the nest. When the chicken pecks that, he's the one that has the mustard beak, and you'll know that's the egg layer, because you'll never break them of the habit. You might as well just off with the stew pot, because you just won't break them. And typically, if you're finding that you do have a lot of egg breakers, they're bored. So in the mornings, especially when they're just, hanging out ready to just lay, and you're not, because the snow is this deep and you can't let them out, take a cabbage or something and put it on a string and then hang it, and they can peck on it. So just the head of cabbage, and then run a string through it and just tie a knot, and then they'll peck on it. Xylophones, go to the garage sales, and the annoying toy that you hit with the little thing, hang those on the walls. Those help. We don't have any bud to kill me, but I'm just saying those are things that I do know that are proven to help them, and they're bored. I mean, that's really what it is. That's why they start. Yeah.
I got wooden eggs and put
Yes.
in my nest, and that helped.
Yeah.
And then also you can get those blocks of
Suet.
well, they're for chickens.
Yeah, I think that, isn't that, am I saying it right? Yeah, the things they can peck on, like you'd
They're
feed a
really
wild
hard,
bird. Yeah,
and it
yep,
keeps them busy too.
yep. And you can,
Like a scratch block?
Yeah, it's for
Yeah.
chickens.
yeah, for chickens. Yep, those will help too also. Yeah.
Golf balls work too.
Golf balls? Yep. Again, our roost, when we did have them, when we built the new coop, we first had them in there, they just pop out. I shouldn't say we, because I didn't do it. Bud took a piece of board and cut a notch in it, and so then the other board slid in, and so we can just pop them out when it's time to clean the coop. That was a game changer. Otherwise, we had this one, and you had to take this dolly thing, and it would pull it and raise it up to the roof, and then you could get under it. And some other ones you had to carry out, and I don't know. That was Pinterest to the rescue. And then this is the automatic door. Does anybody have those on there? Do you have? And so do you, because we don't have them, we just go out and shut the door. Do you find that it goes down too early and some chickens are left out, or do they work fairly well?
Change the timer. So that, But it might happen.
Yeah. So do you have it go off like an hour after sunset, or
Yeah, we get after dark.
After
Half an hour
dark.
After dark, because we have some that like to stay out and party late.
yeah? Yeah, I hear you. We had some that just, and we have some that hang out in the shop in the summertime. They just will not go back to the coop. And
We had quite a few that won't go back after they've been free range. They're like, not
yeah,
that good.
I would say less than, I don't know, 5% of our birds.
Yeah, like less than 5
Yeah.
Most of them go back.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, most of ours, if we leave the light on, they go back. And that's the ventilation timer that we use. Our vents will kick on and exhaust at, what temp, 50, 55, 60? I don't know. It's, right now it's at 60. So if our coop gets to 60 degrees, then those will vent, they will turn on and vent for us. And also the lights then will be on those timers. And you can buy those off, I just grab them off of Amazon. Watering, a chicken needs a pint a day. Don't let your chickens run out of water. You want to see egg production go down real fast. Chickens running out of water. Those are little giants. You can get those. Man Lake has them. Farm Tech has them. Those metal ones, I can't tell you how many dollars we put into metal ones because the grandkids or the hired help would come in there, they create that suction, they stand on both sides of them, pull them up, pop metal pops off, and then it's worthless. And so then they won't hold water. And those tin ones, if you're gonna get into chickens, don't even invest in them. They're about $45 a piece. And the first time somebody can't get the lid off because of the suction, they'll stand on them. Those ones up there, those little giant, are nice. We're kind of going away more and more from them. And we're using these nipples more just because the water stays cleaner. When we first started using the nipples, my dad, I said, Dad, I need you to go to the dump. Why? Go get some toilets. Why? I said, well, I need to make an automatic chicken waterer. And then I told Bud, and he's just like, I swear you in Google, I swear. I said, no, think about it. Okay, so what's a toilet do? It automatically fills when it gets low with water. So we put one of them things on there, and then as the chickens drank, the water would go down, and then it would automatically fill back up. The problem was there's not enough pressure. So if you're going to use the toilet tank, you also have to put some kind of regulator in there so it keeps the pressure, because they would drip a little bit. But now we invested a little bit more dollars, and we have the correct setup. But to get by, when it was outside in the chicken run, it didn't matter if it leaked. And yeah, in the summertime, we just took a garden hose. We just took some pipe fitting and hooked the garden hose right up to the toilet tank, and we had these redneck toilet tanks hanging on the side of the chicken run, and and it worked great. But then when we had to move them inside is when we found out that they dripped a little bit. I'm not a big fan of the buckets that have the nipples on the bottom because you can't ever set that bucket down. If you want to go clean it out or whatever, because you'll break those little nipples. And those nipples are Farm Tech, Man Lake, pretty much all the Premier one, all of them have those chicken. And that one, it just goes on an igloo, and you can Google that to buy them. So do you guys have the pans of water? Do you have the metal ones? Do you have?
Well, right now I use heated dog waters.
Yep.
Except for we tried a new one that has the little 4 nipples on it that you fill it in from the top. And the trickiest part was getting our chickens to change and drink out of that versus the open one that we had in there.
It is a challenge. It is.
Now they're finally drinking, and then the summer we use a plastic.
Yeah. Yeah, the dog waters work excellent if your coop doesn't stay above freezing, to help so that the water doesn't freeze up on you. Because again, water is one of them. I mean, we can see it when our help doesn't keep the water. Like at lunch, they'll get kind of lazy and they won't refill it, and they'll run out of water. And then at night, you can see it in the egg production. It'll actually go off, 25 eggs a day, 30 eggs a day. So it's really important. This coop run, this portable versus stationary, we tried that poultry net, fencing, and it's mobile and it has little things and you step on it, and then it's has electric, it has a solar panel. The problem is that, you know, it has the little part on the bottom of the post. I don't care where you live in South Dakota, but in July, you are not going to push that into them little posts. And then the chickens would fly over it, and the neighbor's dog learned that it could jump over it, you know. So but it was nice to move it, you know, because around our chicken yard, it's just barren. I mean, it, you know, because they're free range, and it goes from our chicken yard down to the pond, and that there's just not much vegetation there. It's nice because Bud has a corral right next there. If he happens to clean the barn or something, though, those chickens are the best manure turners, compost makers you ever saw. You know, they're just excellent at it. And then the poultry netting, the silver wire kind, again, we gave up on that, and we get the poly coated. And actually what we did was the turkey farms down in Nebraska, they were all, you know, tearing them down. We went down there and got rolls of it for nothing. They just said, here, yeah, you want the turkey netting, just take it. And so our run is, how tall is it? Well, he used telephone. Yeah, he used telephone poles. And so our run is really tall. And we just put 2 rows of it on there. But I think that, you know, the portable is excellent, but again, it was just kind of hard to get it to manage. And the chicken tractors, they're awesome, but ours just free reign and go where they want. Our gardens are far enough away, we don't have to worry about it. And the benefits, again, you can tell a store-bought egg from a farm egg. I think everybody can on there. Do you guys have any questions? I don't even know where we are for time. Usually I go way long.
You were good.
Yeah. So, any questions? Those highliners, McMurray Hatchery, they carry them, I think. I'm amazed right now at the price that people are getting for laying hens. Do you all belong to the South Dakota Poultry Group on Facebook? If you don't, that's an excellent resource to join, South Dakota Poultry Group. It's not monitored by, I really don't know who admins it, but you'll find chickens for sale or chicks for sale. Right now, I think that laying hens are going anywhere from $15 to $25 per hen. Yeah. And so, and with the egg prices, you know, it's just crazy right now what they're getting for them. We didn't really go, I think we went up 10 cents. And the reason we went up 10 cents was egg cartons. Oh, that's another thing. Where do you guys all get your egg cartons?
I order them through eggcartons.com.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the more you order, the cheaper
Yep.
they are. You couldn't get them for a while.
Correct. Yep.
But then I ordered quite a bunch.
Yep. Farm Tech is one. I will give you a piece of advice. If you order off of Farm Tech, order 5. They come in 250 per case. But if you order more than 5, they'll ship them on a pallet, and you're shipping like triples. So 5 is the magic number to be able to stay where they just Speedy drops them off, or FedEx or whatever. Anything more than that, they'll ship them on a pallet, and your shipping will kill you. Man Lake has the ones that say large. Am I getting them mixed up? No, I think they're the ones that you have to write on. Some you can get that say large, and others you have to write on. But Man Lake, they have free shipping.
So how much do you end up paying for carton?
Right now, I think we're at 23 cents.
I think mine were 25 cents.
Yeah, I think they're about 20.
And their shipping is free.
Yep, from Egg Carton. Yeah. And do you order them in a 250 case, or do you?
I think that's what it was. The boxes.
Yep, they're tall. Yeah, they're really tall. So, all right. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions, we'll be around here for the rest of the day.